Why has the Horn of Africa become a geopolitical battleground? Look at this region and you can see that more than 10 foreign countries have military bases set up here. That's insane. And since the end of the Cold War, millions have died or been displaced because of brutal conflicts. Meanwhile, this region has endured 3 severe droughts in the past decade alone, and the worst hit are the children. It has received billions of dollars in aid over the years, but things haven't changed much. And with time, foreign entities are claiming to play a bigger role in the security of the region. One has to stop and wonder, why the Horn of Africa? What do people see in this region? Can the Horn of Africa ever recover? But most importantly, will the world allow it? Four countries, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia, make up the Horn of Africa. Internationally, of course, Kenya, Sudan, South Sudan, and Uganda are included during conversations about the Horn of Africa. And the name is pretty straightforward. It looks like a horn. The Horn of Africa is actually a peninsula, located in the easternmost part of the African mainland. The Somali Peninsula is the largest peninsula in East Africa, and the 4th largest in the entire world. Because of the importance of the location of the region, both East and West compete to have their ultimate influence over them. The goal of this video isn't to showcase the events in the Horn of Africa, but to show you how the Horn of Africa has become a geopolitical battleground over the years. It is connected to the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and the Indian Ocean. And because of its geostrategic position, it has a strategic significance in the maritime domain. Nearly 10 to 20% of global trade, which includes a minimum of 6 million barrels of oil every day, crosses the shores of the Horn of Africa. It began in 1869 with the opening of the Suez Canal. Since then, this region has served as a quick connection between the Euro-Mediterranean region, the Middle East, Eastern Africa, and the Indian Ocean. It's because of this positioning, combined with economic, political, and security reasons, that a large number of external parties are active in this region. The Persian Gulf states and former European colonial powers, the Middle East, North America, and Asian countries are all interested in the region. I'm going to start here with Djibouti. Not many people actually know of this tiny country. It's only 23,200 square kilometers in size and is situated here that links the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. France has had a military presence in Djibouti since 1883. Even after Djibouti achieved independence in 1977, France has the largest concentration of its foreign troops in the country. Like France, many other countries have made their mark on the Red Sea's coastline. The USA, Japan, Germany, Italy, Spain, and China have operational military facilities set up in Djibouti. There's a reason why countries do this. For instance, when Russia approached the Djiboutian government to build a military base in the country, the request was rejected because of pressure from the US, which feared Russia's presence in the region. It's the same thing between China and India. With China's military facilities, it isn't about the camp itself, but what it represents. It is primarily meant for China's Belt and Road Initiative to allow for smooth flow of goods from and to China. China's goal is to develop a commercial relationship between Djibouti and Ethiopia and itself. This can be seen with the construction of the Ethiopian-Djibouti railway, water pipeline, and more. This is just one of the examples of how China's engagement in Djibouti and nearby regions serve both a commercial and military purpose. To counter China's presence in the Indian Ocean, India in turn is making stronger ties with African states, especially those in the Horn of Africa. After China first set up a base in Djibouti in 2017, India has opened up embassies in Djibouti and Eritrea. It has signed logistical support agreements with these countries to ensure greater naval access in the region. While such efforts are directed to counter China's presence in the region, it doesn't exactly work. After having invested in the African mainland for decades now, it has slowly begun to earn a name in the region. Earlier this year, China announced that it aims to play a bigger role in the Horn of Africa's security. This move against its policy of non-intervention in the region is to ensure that its infrastructure projects will continue on smoothly. You see, that's the thing about the Horn of Africa. For centuries now, leaders have used this region as a tool for better opportunities where they can advance their own interests. While this may have had some advantages on the larger scale, it definitely did not help the people living here or improve their quality of life. and has only worsened the regional stability. What I mean by that is international disputes have a tendency to spill over. In the case of the Horn of Africa, its spillover can be seen in domestic politics that magnified existing local tensions. I'm going to rewind a little bit and tell you about Somalia, a country that has been caught up in a civil war for decades. The spillover of foreign tensions in the Horn of Africa were evident during colonial times, as various portions of the Somalian territory were controlled by European countries like Italy, the UK, and France. And with the Second World War coming into the picture, tensions among the European countries quickly spilled over to their colonies in Somalia. In the meantime, in their efforts to counter anti-colonial resistance, colonial rulers often relied on divide and conquer tactics that broadened the divide within Somalian society. This was a cycle that the countries in the region fell prey to. But we're so far from colonial times, does this history still matter? Unfortunately, the dynamics of foreign influence are visible even today on the Somali Peninsula. But interestingly, the main players active in Somalia today are those from the Middle East. Countries like Qatar, Turkey, and the UAE have increased their influence in Somalia, and they did this by backing and supporting local politicians and their needs. This played out when tensions between rival countries in the Middle East escalated. Qatar and Turkey were pitted against the UAE and Saudi Arabia in what we call the Gulf Rift. And just like in the colonial times, the rivalry spilled over into Somalia, contributing to the widening existence of political divisions in the country. Similarly, in 2015, when the UAE and Djibouti broke off ties, it retained a part of the Eritrean port city of Asab and turned it into an airbase to launch attacks across the Red Sea. In return, the UAE agreed to modernize the Asmara International Airport and increase fuel supplies to Eritrea. And that's the hard truth. The spillover isn't just one way. Sometimes it works both ways because local politicians know how to leverage and make the best out of the situation. Looking at Ethiopia, it's the leading military power in the wider Horn of Africa area. One of the major reasons it is dissimilar to its neighbors is because of the East Africa Rift. The rift begins not on the African continent, but in Syria, and stretches southwards down to Mozambique. When it crosses central Ethiopia, the rift splits the country's highlands in half, with the lakes that occupy the valleys between them making travel and communication difficult. The country's capital, Addis Ababa, sits on these high grounds. Since it's surrounded by lowlands, it's difficult to invade and occupy the area. With a population projected to rise to 130 million by 2030, it's the second most populous African country. And Ethiopia has something that very few African countries have in abundance, and that's water. It's called the Water Tower of Africa. It has 12 large lakes and 9 major rivers, using which it supplies its neighbors. This gives Ethiopia political leverage over them, and this is actually a whole video in itself. The water wars are real. Let us know in the comment section below if you'd like to learn more about this. In the past, this connection has attracted the attention of Turkey, China, the Gulf states, and the USA, who see political advantage for trade as well as military and economic strategies. Ethiopia may be a regional power, but like any country, it still has issues. Ethiopia is landlocked and is dependent on its neighbors, especially the deep water port of Djibouti, which carries roughly 90% of its imports and exports. Ethiopia was never colonized, but it has problems within its own borders, such as centuries-long cycles of poverty and ethnic violence. Agriculture makes up almost half of Ethiopia's GDP, but this is hindered by periodic droughts, deforestation, overgrazing, poor infrastructure, and more. There's something that ties together the Horn of Africa apart from the existing identity, political, and economic crises and the suffering of its people. In some places in the Horn of Africa, it literally hasn't rained there for 4 years now. This is the longest the region has gone without rainfall in the past 40 years, meaning it's now facing one of the worst droughts, with over 18.5 million people facing acute food insecurity. Here's where things become even worse for those in the region. Russia's attack on Ukraine, happening thousands of miles away, is pushing up the price of grain and fuel to unimaginable levels in this region, as the supplies have reduced drastically. Somaliland and Somalia in general receive 90% of their grain imports from Russia and Ukraine, which is now reduced to a trickle. Combine this with the escalating armed conflict in the region and local governments that never actually recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic, you've got problems that the people in the Horn of Africa are just not able to recover from. Child malnutrition, gender-based violence, localized conflicts over cattle grazing, crowding at limited water points, families being forced to flee their homes in search of safety and arable lands are just a few of the humongous problems that the people of the region are facing. In just the space of 3 months, child dropout rates from schools have tripled. Nearly 3.3 million children have dropped out of school in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia alone. This directly leads to increased rates of child marriages, and especially among adolescent girls, female genitalia mutilation is on the rise. In fact, early in July this year, the International Organization for Migration said it needs $93.4 million of funding to meet the humanitarian needs of 3 million people in the 4 countries that make up the Horn of Africa. That's just one aid program. Various others from the UN, China, Switzerland, and other nations are aimed to help the people identify and prevent acute malnutrition and diseases. The goal has also been to ensure people have access to safe water, sanitation, and more. But here's the thing, these are simply aid programs. While they do make a difference and are much needed initiatives, does it actually make a significant positive impact for the long run? Because for far too long, the Horn of Africa has been a battleground for geopolitics. Like China initiating peace talks while its goal is to invest in infrastructure, France maintaining military operations in Djibouti, or Gulf countries fueling local politics and risking the lives of millions. What the countries from the Horn of Africa need is long-term investment and international cooperation focused not on vested interests but actually on regional integration and the betterment of the people. It all starts with political stability.